Done.
Okay, well, I think that, I mean, compared to last week, I mean, this is going to be, I mean, disappointing because I can't compete with JB's, recording of the demo. Well, we were very happy to be able to show you the work we have been doing. I think that also for a demo that was done live went pretty well with, let's say, not many problems caused by real-time blockchain transactions. So you have seen the new version working. You have seen the new interface, which is beautiful, and so we were really happy and really looking forward to show you that. I don't know if anyone has some questions about that. So we have JB here. Maybe he can answer if you guys want to ask something. Okay, well, otherwise,
I have
yeah,
I can have some questions that I had from the community, and maybe JB can explain so it gets recorded. Like one of the questions we got is like which random number generator we are using. I believe this is because we have members from the community that participate in Chainlink, and maybe explain a little bit the decision. It would be nice to hear about that. And the other question that we've got is why we are deploying first on where exactly is the roadmap. We are going to have the courts in Gnosis using V2, right? But the code will be actually deployed on Arbitrum, right? Is that
Yeah.
and also a question about the token, if there will be a different token or not.
Yeah. Yes, I think I've seen those questions in one of the groups. I'm not sure which one that was. Maybe the complaints group. So, okay, coming back to the RNG, it's randomizer.ai. They have just actually announced that they are launching on Arbitrum mainnet, I think yesterday. So it's a VRF-based RNG Oracle, and yeah, Chainlink is not available on rollups for some very strange reasons. Yeah, there are not that many options, to be honest. So yeah, because it's a rollup. So yeah, there are different things on the L1. The random number generation also has changed since the merge last September. And then on the rollups, it works also a bit differently. So yeah, we rely on that third-party provider. So yeah, Chainlink was not an option. Then the other question, yes. So the court, of course, will be on Arbitrum, and we are going to support integrations from Gnosis chain, which is the first other chain that we are going to support in a cross-chain way, the way that V2 was designed. And what was the other question?
The token.
Oh, the token. Yeah. I mean, right now there's no plan to change the PNK token. The only, in terms of implementation, the token that exists on Arbitrum is the one that is created automatically by the Arbitrum bridge. So it's a very thin ERC20 implementation. And yeah, it's much more lightweight than the implementation that we have on mainnet. So it actually uses less gas. Yeah. So from a user standpoint, that doesn't change anything.
Thanks. I believe that's great. I'll point users to the recording.
Cool. So okay. So from me, I mean, these days we have been doing a bunch of planning for strategic planning. As you know, we have the cooperative meeting that is going to be done probably in March. As you know, we do this every year, where I present the work that was done in the previous year, and then the plans that we have for the following year, and so for all the cooperative partners. So this means that I spend a lot of time in February, typically reviewing different performance indicators, things that we did right, things that we did wrong, to write this report I have to present every year. Also, this is a opportunity to plan activities going forward. So in this case, we are trying to figure out exactly what we want to change in the product portfolio. As you know, we have we have been developing lots of different apps over the years, and some of them could start having like some overlapping. For example, Curate and Stay Curate, and also like Dispute Resolver will not be necessary after the launch of V2. So you have to, simplify and streamline the product portfolio, and so this requires a bit of thinking internally on what we want to keep developing, what is going to be absorbed or should be deprecated, or this type of thinking. Then I also have been doing quite some research about mechanism design, and in particular behavioral game theory, in order to see how these theories affect the way in which the Kleros mechanism works. When we started, we had one idea of how Kleros should work, mostly based on economic incentives. And as you know, there were no on-chain identity. We didn't have proof of humanity. So of course, and this is going to continue to be this way, but V2 has a number of different possibilities to incorporate other decision mechanisms, because you can have people with identity, you can have SVTs, so you could potentially have a course that choose people who have some type of skills or that belong to some community. So this combination between Kleros and SVTs can bring lots of different opportunities to expand the amount of use cases that Kleros can serve. So I've been doing quite some work there with William as well. While we're discussing this with William, maybe I will let William maybe comment something about his ideas on SVTs and Kleros and how he imagines this going forward.
Yeah. So we've been doing sort of interesting research on like how SVTs can be incorporated into Kleros, as you mentioned, like the idea of having like courts where you need SVTs in order to stake. I feel that the in addition to sort of the economic security that we have from the current like economic mechanisms, like it's possible to also have kind of like social security, where in order to like break the protocol beyond just trying to like corrupt people economically, you have to like kind of go against like social norms. And a point that I make in my talk at DevCon about trying to integrate SVTs into Kleros is that if you like think about how you can use these sort of different kinds of layers, if you piece them together well, conceivably you can kind of have the security of both without diluting either. So a point that I make in that talk that I invite people to watch if they're interested is that if you use a screen for whether people are on proof of humanity or not, in order to have it, in order to be brought in certain courts, you need to both stake tokens and like be on proof of humanity. Then what you can see is that even if an attacker can like completely break proof of humanity, which hopefully that should be really hard, and get a bunch of fake profiles, the system still has the economic security of the token staking. It's only it's diluted a little bit, but you can create kind of like bounds on how much it's diluted. So then you can kind of have the best of both worlds, where in order you have like two layers of security, both this kind of like token staking security and also the kind of like social mechanism. And then the question is like, what other kinds of like social layers can we piece together like that will, complement each other and create improved security? Personally, I've always thought of kind of the users using Kleros. When we think about different kinds of actors in our models, like I think of the attacker as being this kind of like purely economically rational. They care about their expected value being positive because presumably you're trying to protect the system against someone who has a large budget and can do an attack a bunch of times. And if there's like a small expected positive value to be had, they can get it by averaging out like over a lot of repetitions of an attack. Whereas if you have like users that are not the attacker, they're sort of like normal users, then there's kind of like questions around behavioral economics of kind of user experience, risk aversion, how they interact with other people, on a social layer, are all like super relevant.
Yeah, so that's what we are looking into. And maybe William, comment a bit on these cases that require decision made from 1 to 10, on this type of decision logics.
Yeah, so like as you may know, we did a lot of research on different kinds of voting systems that can be used when we have cases that are non-binary. Currently, like in V1, you can have non-binary cases in Kleros, but we don't really recommend using V1 for cases that will, by the time they get to jurors, will sort of like crystallize into a binary case. Like maybe you have like an oracle where there are like a whole bunch of things you can submit, but like realistically, by the time it gets to jurors, people will probably be arguing about 2 of them. Like that works fine with the current system. But if people have actual have to decide between a bunch of options that are sort of all like maybe there's several good options, there are like 4 or 5 kind of plausible options, then you can have vote splitting effects. And we thought a lot about how in future versions of Kleros, if V2 will be more modular, so it can use different voting systems, different courts, we can have modules that get around these effects while still having kind of a shelling point mechanism with Kleros. And in particular, one thing that we've been thinking about recently is how there's a specific pilot that is considering looking at this kind of that wants this kind of voting. If you have if you want jurors to produce a decision from 1 to 10, where they produce like a number from 1 to 10, that is a kind of non-binary voting. Only now you have this extra structure where the options are ordered. I'm not choosing between Alice, Bob, Charles, and Dave paying the fee. Like the different options are like have a structure where one is bigger than the other is bigger than the next. And if you think about kind of like, so the question is like, okay, how does our non-binary voting system research apply to this in this special case? And like basically all the good voting systems that would, like Condorcet voting systems, the kinds of things we think about in the yellow paper, all simplify down to the kind of basically what you would expect, where the option that you produce as a collective option from people's votes is you take the median of what people voted. It's like all the kinds of richness of voting systems you could have, kind of non-structured options, would give you the same result here, which would be just taking the median. But then you still have kind of interesting questions around that we like building off what we did in the yellow paper for kind of the incentives and payments for people that would go with this voting system. How much should I be paid if the median answer is 8 and I answered 6? And how should that depend on how like the distribution of people's different answers? And there's still some different, like there are some questions and some differences from the different kinds of voting incentive systems we considered give slightly different answers. And then the question is like, okay, like how do you parameterize so that you get something that doesn't penalize people too much if they answer 6 and the answer was 8, but still is, if somebody launches an attack to try to nudge the answer, will be resistant to those kinds of attacks.
There you go. So we have that as well. Yeah, so looking forward to this. And I think that if people want to know more about this, I think this was your talk at the THCC, William?
Yeah, so I've given 2 different talks in 2 different years on HCC that are related to these kinds of voting system questions. So the one the last one this past summer touches on this, so that's in 2022. And then also the talk I gave at ECC in 2020 also touches on voting system questions. So in a certain sense, the 2022 one is more general, and the 2021 is more specific. So if you were watching the talks, I would start at 2022, and then I would zoom in on the more details in the 2020 talk.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, William. I see Shotaro is there. Maybe you want to comment something about Suzy?
Sure. So there has been a few experiments, a few groups using Suzy. Suzy is a bit more reliable. I've integrated some feedback from users. So, for example, a warning system. There's an optional warning system now, and a way to forgive users. Yeah. So Suzy is reaching a level of reliability that might be introduced into more Kleros groups if we were ready with a robust set of rules. And maybe this is where I need some feedback from the community about what sort of sets of rules might make sense. I can link this in the chat. The default set of rules, which cover a few obvious instances of negative behavior, which might be undesirable. So yeah, if anyone has feedback on that, please let me know in the main Telegram chat. There are a few of different avenues of work and interests. So moderating different platforms, different types of social media. So in this instance, Suzy has sort of like a hybrid trust model where Telegram is a Web2 platform, but to deal with messages that might be deleted, when reports are created, those messages are preserved on IPFS. But nonetheless, Suzy is running on a server somewhere. So Suzy is running on like a kind of centralized infrastructure, although like a group owner could host the bot themselves. But at least Suzy is providing a way to intermediate disputes that people have over content moderation questions. There are some other, there's many different possibilities with moderating social media. There is, yeah, I am most interested in pursuing. There used to be a comment section in Linguo, as well as Omen. Omen is this prediction market. Linguo is this arbitrable DApp that was made by the cooperative, trying to match freelance translators with people who need translations using Kleros for escrow. And there used to be a way to communicate. Oh, it's a bit loud. Okay. Yeah, so there used to be a way to communicate between the translator and the freelancer, or sorry, the client and the freelance translator. But that depended on some project team called 3Box, and they now turned into Ceramic. So they sort of deprecated this tool that was being used for supporting comments. So looking into some Web3 social media tools and platforms. Most interested right now is Orbis on Ceramic in making a moderated comment section that could be kind of generalizable. You could put this into a Uniswap front end where if you can gate people who can add comments, whether or not they took out whether or not they're liquidity providers, or if it's a proof of humanity profile, whether or not the users are registered on proof of humanity, and then you can do some moderation layer on top. And you can do especially interesting things with proof of humanity as a unique case. In Kleros v2, the court is a bit more modular. So there is a planned dispute kit that's already been written where jurors are drawn from a pool of jurors who are registered on proof of humanity. So in this sense, you could have a community moderate itself where jurors are drawn directly from that community itself. So yeah, there's a lot of different moderation applications, and just need to like prioritize what is the best use case, which platforms and which communities need moderation, and what types of communities or what sort of moderation would groups be willing to trust. So that's one thing, there's moderation, and then there's also a little bit of work happening on VEA, this bridge that is that has been developed. It's sort of a meta bridge. It's sort of this optimistic bridging mechanism to bridge messages quickly. The idea is that Kleros v2 is going to live on an optimistic rollup, and optimistic rollups have a 7-day delay, and so right. But for those who don't know, VEA is the solution that Kleros built to pass messages quickly from dApps that live on optimistic rollups and dApps that don't live on the optimistic rollup. So this is how Kleros v2 can support arbitrable dApps on Gnosis chain, on mainnet, and any other chain that settles to Ethereum mainnet. And there's a little bit of work on once this VEA bridge infrastructure is live, then you can build many tools on top. So it could be possible to build some ways to bridge tokens and other kinds of cross-chain applications can be built on top. So there's a little bit of work on that front. And maybe I'll end my rambling with just one comment on William's mentioning of this of taking some special care for use cases where an arbitrable dApp wants a non-binary outcome on a scale of 1 to 10. This does remind me of this paper that William and Clement co-authored on using a Schelling point style game for real number Oracle. So it could be like, I mean, this is one possible application, but what is or was the rate of inflation of the US dollar in January of 2023? And the answer there is well, it's a real number. I mean, maybe William can explain it better than I, but the idea is that some people would sort of make a prediction or an estimate that, okay, the inflation was greater than 5%, less than 10%. And so someone might make a prediction, okay, the inflation was greater than 6%, but less than 7%. The predictions that are closest to the sort of coherent Schelling point of everyone's guesses, the closer or the narrower predicted ranges are, the higher their reward. So like if someone makes a prediction or guesstimate that inflation is between negative infinity and positive infinity, or the minimum representable integer on the EVM and the maximum possible representable integer on the EVM, then that person would be rewarded the least, and the person who has the most narrow range would get a larger reward. So I guess I'm kind of curious if there's some application of the incentive mechanism described in that paper, and maybe this discrete case where approximately, I guess it's an integer oracle or something, or distinct set oracle.
So you described the system well. So like the real advantage of that system that I co-authored, in this paper that I co-authored with Clement, is that it allows the system itself to determine how much precision it needs. So in these real value oracles, you always have this question of how many decimal points should we ask for? Like say you need a price oracle for ETH, or you want this inflation rate example. The system itself probably doesn't know how precise it needs to be. If I'm building a naive oracle, maybe I build an oracle and I'm like, okay, please give me the price of ETH to $1, and then ETH 10x's or something, and then maybe it's like that like the dollar estimate is no longer relevant. So maybe I'm like, okay, maybe I want like a percentage estimate. But some people, different applications that draw information from an oracle will want more or less precise information. And our paper is interesting in that it basically allows the system to determine its own level of precision by what the users submit to it. You can, like, if you want like a really precise answer, you can submit a very small interval. And if jurors and do sort of like, there are a bunch of like Kleros cases that result from the submissions people make. And ultimately, like, people will rule whether, like, okay, this answer was higher or lower, higher or lower than this value, higher or lower than that value. And you do like a binarization thing to eventually get some collective outcome. And then you look at whether someone had that outcome in their interval, and you reward them if they did, and you penalize them if they didn't. So if I put in a really small interval and then I'm proven right, I'm rewarded, and I can force the system to be really precise. So when you have discrete answers, the sort of 1 to 10, it's less important to have like this sort of adaptable precision, because like the discrete 1, 2, 3, 4 is already the sort of precision that you've built in. If I asked for a discrete answer, but I gave you like 1 to 1,000,000 or something, then even though those are still like a discrete number of finite answers, now when you squint, you kind of look more like the real value case. So it might be more useful to have the interval thing, and to kind of take on the extra overhead that implies.
So from the perspective of usability and use cases, this is extremely important, because this opens the door to use cases of people who want to use Kleros in order to estimate some compensation. Let's say, how much should the insurance company compensate the policyholder after the accident, or how much should the construction company compensate, whatever use case you can think of how much should one party compensate the other. So this is what we need for those use cases, and we get lots of questions about that. This particular research of the 1 to 10 thing comes from the request of an insurance company that actually needs decision made on these grounds, and not just the binary who is guilty, Alice or Bob kind of situation. So this will enable lots of different use cases for Kleros, which are going to be really, really relevant and potentially also very massive. And I think that's it. Maybe the only last thing I could comment, I'm going to be participating in early April in Harvard. There's going to be at the Kennedy School of Government conference on DAOs and governance, so the future of governance at Harvard, and Kleros was invited to the conference, and I will be very much happy to represent Kleros there. So that's super cool, and everyone from the decentralized governance ecosystem is going to be there. So yeah, excited about that. And I guess that's it for today. No, maybe Jean, you have something you want to comment?
We have a talent layer, one of the projects of the incubator. They are running a hackathon, which means like a hackathon where people try to break their protocol, because it looks like they are getting close to launch. They are in Lisbon, but they are also holding it like virtually. If you are interested, I'll share the link. And
disputer.it is going to
break it. The serial breaker. Yeah, probably he can help test the policy. And they and also Emmet created a group for projects that have been incubated or are participating in the incubator now. And well, if the projects also that are building with Kleros and maybe might be looking for funding, and he'll be sharing like relevant content if for projects that want to scale, basically. So yeah, I just shared the link for that as well.
Okay, well, I guess you can claim your hard-earned POAPs now.
Oh yes, you can DM me. I have the links for the blobs.
Awesome. Well, guys, see you on Telegram. Bye bye.
Everybody.
Bye, everyone.